This is the first of two instances. First, I was alone in the basement, playing GTA 4 with my friend on my PC. It gets to be about 1 a.m. and we're having a blast, shooting RPGs and throwing grenades willy-nilly. Then I hear a sound that really doesn't fit with GTA. I figure it's not coming from my headset, so I take it off. The sound that's being made is coming from an old music box that we have. The last time it was used was probably 10 years ago. And this thing is just full-on blaring its song. I start chanting, no, 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 and book it upstairs, leaving my friend on Skype, pretty confused. My mom and dad are coming down from their room, my dad equipped with a baseball bat. As you can imagine, it was hard to explain to them that it was not an intruder. My second instance was in the same basement. Now, my basement has a main area where most of the furnishings are, and a satellite room that's off to that. Then, there's the unfinished part of the basement where I'm sure is where the spirit dwells. But I digress. Anyway, this time I'm playing GTA 4 again with the same friend. It's about 1 a.m. again, and we decide to call it a night. It's at this point that I hear a da 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 read with two little girl voices from above the bowels of the unfinished part of the basement. Now, it's pitch black around me except for my island of salvation at my computer. At this point, I'm just so fucking done with ghosts that I say, fuck it, fine, have the basement, and I go upstairs and go to bed. There's a couple more instances of spooky ghosts, but they're not as scary as these two. I was born and raised in North Dakota. Back when I was in high school, a group of us would research murders that occurred out in the country. We would then go out and find the scenes and film the exploration at night. This was about 2 years before the Blair Witch came out. It was something to do when we got wasted on shitty beer and teenage bullshit. Eventually, we ran out of places to go. North Dakota, few people means few murders. And we got really good at finding abandoned rural farmsteads by driving dirt roads and looking for the signs. Rut roads, deliberate tree grooves, and old mailbox posts are common markers. We were out looking when we spotted a tree grove that was out of place, and drove through the field and discovered an old, but not too old house. It had padlocks on the outside doors that were knocked off pretty easily. We dispatched of them and entered the kitchen. There were 6 of us, all with flashlights, and we lit up the kitchen/dining area fairly easily. The table was the initial thing that you noticed, and it was strange because of how normal it looked. It was set for a meal, and not a bowl was out of place. The only thing was, we'd been in dozens of these houses, and place settings like this were a first, especially unbroken ones. As we investigated the area, we found the fridge had the disgusting remnants of a full stock, and the cupboards were full of canned and dry foods. This was also a first. One guy found mail on the counter from early June 1978, and another found a creepy-ass TV guide in the living room with UFOs on the cover. All the family portraits were hanging up, mom, dad, brother, and sister, in all their 1970s glory. Furniture was dusty, but in good condition. Closets were full, everything was totally normal, which was super abnormal. As we dug around the house, we started to realize that this house had not been moved out of. It had been straight up abandoned. Imagine locking the door to your house and never coming back. That's the state that this house was in. Completely unplanned departure. We went upstairs and split into 3 pairs to check out the 3 rooms. Ours was the closest, and obviously it was the younger boy's room. I can't describe what it looked like too well, because almost right away from the hall, we heard the most fucking terrifying scream I have ever had the misfortune of hearing. We went running into the hallway, and we were all yelling and questioning each other at the same time. After a few, really long, seconds, the 2 screamers caught their breath and said, "We have to go in and see." Walking down the hall and through the doorway, I prayed that I wouldn't act like a pussy in front of my friends. I shouldn't have been too concerned about that because the others were just as scared as I was. The room itself opened up to the left of the doorframe, and centered on the right side of the room was a queenish-sized bed. Propped up, on pillows, with a blanket drawn to the waist, arms on top of the blanket, and the worst of all, head turned slightly so it was looking at you straight in the eyes when you entered the room, was a life-sized porcelain doll. Snow white skin, jet black hair, cold, dead eyes. The dead eyes lit up with our flashlights. Like she was waiting for us. If the head hadn't been turned, I could excuse it, but it was turned, ready for whenever we walked in. Ready for 20 years. Hasty fucking exits were made, down the stairs and into the car. It was during the ride we started to get even more creeped out when we realized that, even though the house had been abandoned, someone had taken the time to set up that goddamn doll. Not packing food, clothes, or family photos, setting up the doll was one of the last things done in this house. We researched their names, but nothing. No tragic car accident, no grisly massacre, no extended family, just a tacky time capsule in the middle of nowhere. We found out from the county that they had taken possession of the land for non-payment of taxes, explaining the locks, but never tracked down any more information on what happened to them, or why they left that fucking doll. When I was a kid, I would race up to the top of the stairs as fast as I could, like it was some sort of silly game. Well, I must have been 5 or 6 at the time, I'm not sure, but I know I was very little. Somewhere along the way, a voice at the top of the stairs started to whisper to me. It would make bets with me, such as, "I bet you a penny you can't make it to the top of the stairs." I don't really think there was a certain amount of time or anything. As I said, I was very little, so I probably didn't have any counting abilities anyway. I recall just sitting at the top of the steps, having conversations with this voice. About the betting, of course. Eventually, the voice started to bet me my life. Instead of pennies, it'd say, "I bet you your life you can't make it up the stairs." As I got older, it stopped. I never really thought all too much about it. I never mentioned it to anyone until one night I was sleeping over my brother's place, and we were talking about spooky stories. Out of nowhere, I brought up the voice at the top of the stairs, and my brother got all quiet and weird. Before I even mentioned the betting aspect, he said, "Did it make bets with you?" We both looked at each other, horrified. It certainly was freaky. A lot of bad shit went down in my family at that period of time in my life, and my mother, a heavily religious lady, said that there was a lot of evil in our house at that time. I don't at all think our place was haunted, but it was built in the late 70s, and as I got older, I never experienced anything like that again. I feel like the one side of my family is cursed to have to deal with ghosts and demons. This is all 100% true, but a lot of this may sound made up. I promise they are not. I feel like I'm late to the party and this will all be buried, but I'll start as far back as I know. My great-grandmother's sister was born with a veil of skin over her face, and it's believed by many that people born with veils over their face can see the future. One day, my great-grandmother and her were walking down the road. This was a rural West Virginia town, so they were fairly alone. The sister tells my great-grandmother, "Hester, that man on the horse is coming. He's gonna get us." My great-grandmother flips out and they run home. That night, they hear the galloping of a horse up and down their street. Up until I was 6, our house was horribly haunted. Dangerously so at times. Eventually, a priest came in and blessed the house and sealed all portals to stop spirits from coming through. We used to have this painting on our wall. It was a cabin with a path leading down from it. If you stayed up late, you can see people walking down the path. We eventually got rid of it. We had another painting. I hated this fucking painting. My mom hated this fucking painting. Everyone hated this fucking painting, except for my dad. He found it in a dumpster at work and decided it would look nice on our wall. It was this old cabin with a large, evil-looking trees next to it. Just looking at it would creep you the fuck out. Would creep the fuck out of anyone. Even thinking about it, I'm getting chills. Seriously, fuck that painting and whoever painted it. We were gonna throw it away, but my cousin wanted it. They took it and started hearing things in their house. My cousin burned it, and the noises stopped. We recently moved from the formerly haunted house, and I always felt like I was being watched. as did everyone else in the house. We used to all see shadows dancing on the edges of our vision and everything. Sometimes while walking up the stairs, I knew something was behind me. I just knew. Sometimes my legs would lock up from fear, and I'd have to call my mom to come help. How I ever slept in the basement of that fucking place, I'll never know. This is one of those ones you might not be inclined to believe, but I promise this happened. My dad witnessed it, and I saw the aftermath. One night, my brother screams, "Wake the fuck up, I saw Mary in the kitchen." And Mary was the real mother of my adopted sister. She died unexpectedly, and her real dad went to prison. He had saw her going from the sink to the basement door. My dad and my brother go down there, and I shit you not, my brother was picked up and thrown across the basement, over a workout bench. My dad and brother ran upstairs. My brother yells, "Wake the hell up. Something in this fucking house is trying to fucking kill me." Everyone wakes up. We all move our beds to the living room so we could sleep together. Me, at the ripe old age of 5, sat on my mother's lap while she helped my brother stop the bleeding. He had deep, nasty scratches all down his chest and stomach, and even a few on his face. Scratches that could only be caused by human nails. He still has the scars, but most are hidden under his tats, but that's another story. We stayed because my whole family is super stubborn, and it was 4 a.m. For a month straight, everyone slept together in the living room. Now, onto the ones that I've been told about, but don't remember. We had a pool table in our basement for a while. You could see and hear pool balls flying back and forth like the bastards were having a game. Before we had any pets, my mom heard a deep growl in the laundry room while doing laundry. Now, this one could have been an animal, but that was a pretty large growl according to my mom. Now, this next one has to do with the people I've never even met. My mom saw it happen though, and I trust her totally. And I fully expect all of you to call this bullshit, and I'm okay with that. But it happened, and it's true. My mom's now dead cousin fought a demon or the devil. According to him, it was the devil. He had always been a deeply religious man, but in the years leading up to this, he'd struggled with drug addiction. One day he's down in the basement, and his dad and mom hear him screaming, and a bunch of loud crashes. They run downstairs, and the cousin is being whipped back and forth, sometimes being thrown into walls, being lifted into the air and all. They try to hold him down, but he yells, "No, you've got to let me do this. If you don't, he's going to win and take me." So for the next 12 hours or so, they watch their son fight the devil. They say they could feel his presence, that it was deeply inhuman and wrong. They called a few members of their church and family, and they all stand down there praying for him. After a while, it just stops. Somehow, he resisted the devil and won. I lived in a house from hell for 4 years, from the ages of 11 to almost 16. There was constantly something happening. Doors flying open and shut, voices, footsteps. Nothing ever stayed where you put it. I was alone there a lot, because both my parents worked, and I was constantly terrified. One of the most gut-level disturbing things, though, was this little girl in my bathroom. Every time I walked past my bathroom door, I saw a little girl with blonde, curled hair and rose-colored dress. She just stood there, staring, looking like a photograph from 1905. I started keeping the door closed so I could walk by without seeing her, but she was always there when I opened it. Once I stepped in past her, I couldn't see her anymore, but I can feel her there. She scared me, but I felt really sorry for her because she was trapped there, just like me, but probably forever. As the years went by, things in the house continued to get worse. She started seeming darker. I started feeling like she wasn't really a little girl. I knew there was something ugly in that house, and I felt like it was presenting this sympathetic image to me. Then I started thinking I was completely losing my mind. One day when I was 14, I had a friend from out of town come stay with me for a week. I hadn't told her anything whatsoever about this house because I didn't think she would come if I did. Right after she got there, we were sitting in my room, and she left to go to the bathroom. About a minute later, she walked back with a puzzled look on her face and said, "So, there's a little girl in your bathroom." Yeah, she hangs out in there. Blonde hair? I asked. Curls? Pink dress? Yeah, you know, that's not really a little girl, don't you? I almost threw up. I was so relieved and terrified and excited and ready to run out of the house screaming. She wouldn't use my bathroom the rest of the week, and I started using it as little as possible without pissing off my parents. Eventually, we moved out, and I could not have been happier. I distanced myself from that mentally as much as I could. Then, when I was 18, I took another friend on a road trip to pack up a few things I'd left at the house. My parents hadn't managed to sell it, and wouldn't for 5 more years. But the minute we got on the property, my friend seemed uncomfortable, to say the least. When we came around the bend in the long, steep driveway, he went completely white. I could tell something was wrong, but he insisted he was okay. So we got to work. After a while, he asked to use the bathroom, and I directed him to mine. Not even 20 seconds after he left, he came running back, gasping for breath, and slammed the bedroom door behind him. He started babbling about a little blonde girl who wasn't really a little girl. All of a sudden, he went dead still, looked me in the eye, and very solemnly said, "She's not happy with you. You left, and you weren't supposed to." We threw whatever we can grab in 2 trips into my car and got the fuck out at top speed. I hope you guys enjoyed this second video in the true ghost stories thing that I'm doing. I always really like looking up new paranormal experiences. Not new ones, but, you know, other people's paranormal experiences. And don't forget to thumbs up the video, subscribe if you're not. You want to see the last video, it will be on the top left. Next video will be bottom left. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.